In 1945, the de Havilland DH-104 Dove took its first flight from Hatfield Aerodrome, piloted by de Havilland test pilot Geoffrey Pike. It carried 8 passengers in an unpressurized, all-metal cabin. It had no jet engine, no pressurization, no transoceanic ambition. By the time production closed in 1967, 544 had been built. Operators ran them on routes across Africa, South America, Southeast Asia, Australia, and North America. 21 years of continuous production in an industry that, within that same window, had moved from piston biplanes to commercial jet travel. That number, 544, is what this story is about. Not the Dove's specifications, not its individual performance figures. The question worth asking is this. In a market being flooded by war-surplus DC-3s that airlines could acquire for almost nothing, and against competitors designed to the same post-war specification, how did a small British feeder aircraft with a straightforward piston engine end up with one of the strongest production runs in its class? The answer has almost nothing to do with the aircraft being exceptional. It has everything to do with the problem it was built to solve, and the fact that its designer, Ronald Bishop, understood that problem more precisely than almost anyone else working at the time. Bishop had spent the war directing development of the de Havilland Mosquito, the fast bomber built from wood and bonded with Redux adhesive, which had been fast enough and light enough to outrun most of what the Luftwaffe sent after it. The engineering lesson Bishop carried out of that program was specific. The best outcome is not the most complex outcome. It is the simplest outcome that fully solves the actual problem. When he turned to the DH-104, he applied that lesson directly. In 1943, with the war still unresolved, the British government formed a committee under Lord Brabazon of Tara to determine what civil aircraft the country would need once the fighting stopped. The Brabazon Committee divided the requirement into 5 categories by size and range. The Type 5B, the smallest category, called for a twin-engine, short-range feeder aircraft to connect regional airports with major hubs, carrying around 8 passengers over routes under 1,000 miles. That requirement was the direct origin of the Dove. De Havilland took it on under Air Ministry Specification 2643, framing the DH-104 as a modern replacement for the pre-war Dragon Rapide biplane, the same aircraft the company had been building since 1934. The conceptual shift was significant. The Dragon Rapide was a fabric-covered biplane with fixed undercarriage. The Dove would be all-metal, low-wing, with retractable tricycle landing gear, constant-speed propellers, full flaps, and construction using the Redux bonding technique Bishop had developed on the Mosquito. Same role, completely different standard of engineering. There was a competing aircraft designed to the same specification. The Miles M60 Marathon addressed the Type VA requirement, slightly larger than the Dove, and it did not go well. Miles went bankrupt in 1947 before production was properly established. Handley Page bought the program, delivered a small number as the Handley Page Marathon, and both BOAC and British European Airways declined to order it after evaluation. British European Airways, on assessment, found the Marathon inferior to the Dragon Rapide the committee had commissioned it to replace. The Dove did not have that problem. When Flight magazine evaluated it in 1946, the review noted specifically its load-carrying capacity, its safe engine failure performance, and the quality of its maintenance design. That last point, maintainability, had been a deliberate priority. Rudders, elevators, and power units were designed for interchangeability and rapid removal. Components were accessible. Ground crews did not need specialist facilities. For airlines operating away from major maintenance hubs, that characteristic was not a secondary consideration. It was central to whether the aircraft was viable at all. The single most important competitive challenge the Dove faced was not another new design. It was an aircraft that had been built by the thousands during the war and was now available to commercial operators at prices that bore no relationship to the cost of manufacturing anything. By 1946, surplus Douglas DC-3s and their military C-47 variants were entering the civilian market in enormous numbers. Airlines that could not afford new aircraft, which was most of them, could acquire a DC-3 for a fraction of what a Dove cost. The DC-3 carried 21 passengers to the Dove's 8. It had already accumulated a decade of operational reliability data. Ground crews across the world knew how to fix it. De Havilland's answer to this was not to compete on price or capacity. They competed on fit. A DC-3 needed a runway of reasonable quality and reasonable length. A Dove needed considerably less. The DC-3 was sized for routes that could justify 21 seats. A large proportion of post-war regional routes could not justify 21 seats, and those routes were where the Dove operated with no competition, because no one else was building a modern twin for 8 passengers. South African Airways evaluated every available aircraft type for feeder and secondary routes after the war on instruction from the Minister of Transport F.C. Sturrock. Their conclusion was that the Dove was the type best suited to their needs. In November 1946, they took delivery of their first example, ZS-BCB, named Naval Hill. Routes followed between Johannesburg and what was then Lourenço Marques, and between Durban and Bloemfontein, routes through terrain and to airfields where a DC-3 was either too large or operationally marginal. By the way, if you're into stories like this, subscribing takes 2 seconds, and there's a lot more coming. Argentina placed the largest single order, 70 aircraft, most of them for military service, but a significant number for civil use as well. LAN Chile took 12. Operators in Australia, the Azores, Belgium, Brazil, Burma, Ethiopia, India, Iraq, and across West Africa followed. Each of these markets had in common what South African Airways had identified: routes too short, too thin, or too remote for larger aircraft, but commercially real enough to require something better than what the pre-war era had provided. Foreign aircraft generally had a hard time gaining acceptance in the United States. The post-war American market was dominated by domestically built types, and the commercial relationships that sustained European manufacturers on other continents did not transfer easily across the Atlantic. The Dove found its American market by changing what it was selling. In 1948, de Havilland introduced the Dove Series 2, a 6-seat executive transport variant rather than an airliner configuration. The standard Dove carried 8 to 11 passengers in an airline layout. The Series 2 seated 6 in a corporate interior, positioned as a business aircraft for companies that needed reliable transport between cities not served by the major carriers. Over 100 Dove Series 2 aircraft sold in the United States. That figure, in the post-war American market, where foreign-built aircraft almost uniformly struggled, is the clearest available measure of how precisely the executive configuration addressed what buyers there actually wanted. The American market also generated the only significant third-party conversion program the Dove attracted. Riley Aeronautics, based in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, offered the Riley 400, a Dove airframe re-engined with 2 400-horsepower Lycoming IO-720 flat-8 piston engines. The first Riley 400 flew in 1963. The modification improved performance margins and addressed a preference among American operators for domestically sourced power plants. Riley also offered optional modifications including a swept-back tail fin, a new instrument panel, and a reinforced wing spar. The Riley 400 was a market-specific adaptation of a design that had already proven it could hold its position without it. The production of the Dove began at de Havilland's Hatfield factory in Hertfordshire. From 1951 onward, manufacturing moved to the company's Broughton facility near Chester. That shift reflected a program that had grown from a post-war startup into a sustained commercial line. The variant sequence tells the story of how the Dove extended its production life. The original Series 1 gave way to the Series 1B, with more powerful Gypsy Queen 72 engines of 380 horsepower each. The Series 5 and Series 6 followed with the same engine upgrade applied to the airliner and executive variants respectively. The Series 7 and Series 8, introduced with the Gypsy Queen 70-3 producing 400 horsepower per engine, came with an enlarged oil cooler intake on each nacelle and the raised canopy design that had appeared on the Heron, the Dove's 4-engine development that had entered service in 1952. Each upgrade incrementally increased maximum takeoff weight and ceiling without requiring the tooling investment a clean sheet replacement would have demanded. The airframe remained fundamentally the same from 1945 to the end of production. The customer kept getting a more capable aircraft. The military variant, the Devon Sea Mark I for the RAF, and the Devon C.20 for the Royal Navy, absorbed 39 and 13 aircraft respectively, along with Devon deliveries to the air forces of Ceylon, Egypt, Ethiopia, India, Ireland, Jordan, Lebanon, New Zealand, Pakistan, South Africa, and Sweden. Military procurement extended the production economics without requiring separate development cost. De Havilland was absorbed by Hawker Siddeley in 1960. The Dove program continued under the new ownership. The last aircraft was delivered in 1967 by a company that was no longer de Havilland in any name, to an operator buying an airframe design that was 22 years old. The final production total was 544 units, 388 civilian Doves, 127 Devon C-2s for the RAF, and 13 Sea Devons. The Heron that succeeded it was a larger aircraft with 4 engines instead of 2 and a stretched fuselage, but it retained the Dove's wing and its basic structural approach. Of 148 Herons built, a significant number ended up converted under the Saunders ST-27 program. Herons re-engined with turboprops in the 1970s to extend their service lives still further. The line that began with Bishop's 1943 design brief continued generating economically viable aircraft into a period when the Concorde was already in service. What the Dove accomplished was not the redefinition of commercial aviation. It was the creation and consistent supply of something the industry actually needed for 21 years, a reliable, maintainable, correctly sized twin-piston aircraft for routes and operators that larger aircraft could not economically serve. That is a specific form of success, and the production numbers are the evidence of it. If this story was worth your time, hit like and subscribe, and drop what you think in the comments.